Let's face it, each console has a set audience. Of course, as with anything, there are exceptions. There are Nintendo fans who like dark, gritty shooters, there are Xbox fans who like Japanese RPGs, and there are PlayStation fans who would prefer gameplay over cutscenes. There are a multitude of factors that can feed into this: the age of the average player, the culture of the average player, or simply marketing. A game being on the wrong system at the wrong time can be disastrous. We saw this multiple times on the Wii U, where critically well-received games like Zombie U or Bayonetta 2 flopped miserably because they could only catch the attention of a niche corner of an already small install base. Now, luckily most systems don't sell quite as poorly as our beloved Wii U, but that doesn't stop good games from missing the mark now and then, simply due to their console of choice having the wrong audience. So with that in mind, let's look at games that released on something other than a Nintendo console that might have done better with Nintendo's fanbase. I'm John Rairdon, you're watching NWR TV, and these are 5 non-Nintendo games that maybe should have been Nintendo games. Number 5, Ukulele. Alright, now this first one is cheating, I get it, that's why I put it at the bottom of the list. Yes, Ukulele was announced for a Nintendo system twice, actually, but imagine how much more selling power it would have had if it had launched day one on the Switch. In case you missed it, Ukulele is a 3D platformer developed by a team of ex-Rare developers who worked on games like Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's a lot of fun and got generally favorable reviews. In fact, it was one of the most successful Kickstarter projects in history. Unfortunately, it seems that all the PC, Xbox, and PS4 fans who were interested in the game already invested enough in the project to get a free copy, and the remaining audience for those systems seems to have no interest in playing a game built inherently for Nintendo fans, resulting in a combined sales total of about 290,000 units sold on all platforms. So essentially, they made a game that supposedly serves as a spiritual sequel to Banjo-Kazooie, a beloved Nintendo game, but rather than selling it to the fan base that still loves 3D platformers, and Nintendo fans, they sold it to everyone else. If this had launched day one on the Switch, it would have been an easy sell. One of the reasons the Nintendo Switch has been doing so well is that Nintendo fans feel like its games are a return to form for Nintendo, and a Banjo-Kazooie sequel would have fit right in with that idea. As it is, by the time Ukulele does release on Switch, its momentum will be gone. I'll still hold out that this is a great game, but I can't help but feel that it squandered its potential by launching first on everything but Nintendo. Number 4, Ico. Despite being absolutely beloved by critics and its current fanbase, when Ico launched on PS2 back in 2001, it didn't exactly meet with the commercial success that you would expect given its reputation. Its poor sales in America are often credited to its awful box art, but even in other territories where the game featured absolutely beautiful art, it still sold terribly, only racking up about 470,000 sales worldwide. While both its sequels, Shadow of the Colossus and The Last Guardian, fared much better, as did the game's re-release on PS3, its initial launch could have been quite different on GameCube. Now granted, the GameCube had a smaller install base, but I think there's a lot of appeal in Ico to core Nintendo fans. Ico itself plays like a mix of Myst and The Legend of Zelda. The focus on combat is pulled back, and a greater emphasis is placed on puzzle solving and exploration. The game also features a unique, moody art style that might have satisfied gamers who were at that point freshly dismayed over Wind Waker's cell shading. Yeah, that was a phase that we Nintendo fans went through. We're not proud of it, but it happened. It would have launched right around the same time as the GameCube itself, and it could have served as a stand-in Zelda game while fans waited for Wind Waker. Interestingly, Eiji Aonuma, the current producer of Zelda, has cited Ico as a major artistic influence in the design of Wind Waker's follow-up, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Number 3, Project Sylphid. Alright, here's my super obscure game for this list, and the one I'm guessing the fewest of you have ever heard of. In fact, that's less of a guess and more of like an absolute fact, as Project Sylphid only sold about 150,000 units. Let me give you a brief list of the reasons why. To start with, it was a heavily Japanese-themed game that released on the Xbox 360. On top of that, it was a 3D space shooter produced by Square Enix. This departure from established genre likely threw off a large portion of their fanbase. Finally, it was a sequel to a game series best known for a release on the Sega CD. and nothing should ever be known best for a release on the Sega CD. And while on the 360 the game failed to find an audience, one can certainly imagine its simple but well-designed graphics, over-the-top characters, and Star Fox-style communication boxes gracing the Nintendo Wii. There arguably would even be room for some sort of motion controls, perhaps with the Wii Remote being used as a joystick, or to aim your shots. The lack of good space shooters, a genre previously well represented on Nintendo through games like Rogue Squadron and the traditional Star Fox games, was definitely felt during the Wii launch, and Project Sylphid could have certainly filled that gap. As is, it's an incredible hidden gem on a system that has little interest in it. Unlike Ico, the gaming community never really came back for it. It can regularly be found resting in bargain bins, so if you see it, pick it up and give it a loving home. Number 2. Rare Replay. While I was brainstorming games to put on this list, a few of the early ones I thought of were Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, Grabbed by the Ghoulies, and Perfect Dark Zero. I quickly realized I was literally just making a list of games on Rare Replay, which released on Xbox One, and despite plenty of hype, from Nintendo fans mind you, it only sold about 870,000 units, which, to be fair, makes it the best-selling game on this list, but it's far short of where it ought to be considering what it is. Rare Replay is a collection of pretty much every game Rare ever made, excluding those that involved licensed Nintendo characters. It's an incredibly well put together collection, featuring HD versions of some of the best games on Nintendo 64, tons of obscure old computer games, plenty of NES and arcade classics, and of course, a bunch of underrated Xbox and Xbox 360 games. That package alone would have been a pretty easy sell on a Nintendo console, but wait, it gets even better. If Rare Replay had released on a Nintendo system, Rare would have been able to include all of the games they couldn't in its initial release. Stuff like the Donkey Kong Country games, Donkey Kong 64, Diddy Kong Racing, and my personal favorite, Star Fox Adventures, which looks amazing in HD by the way. Not to mention portable games like Banjo Pilot and Grunty's Revenge. Essentially what I'm saying is that had Rare Replay released on a Nintendo system, it not only would have a greater appeal, but it would include about 30% more content. Now here's the really crazy part. It's not totally out of the question that this could happen. Microsoft has already shown an interest in profit over exclusivity. Just look at Minecraft. Not only is it available on pretty much everything, including practically being a launch title for the Nintendo Switch, but it will be among the first console games to have online crossplay between pretty much everyone that isn't PlayStation. With that in mind, I could totally see Microsoft developing a follow-up to Rare Replay on Switch, and holy crap, that would be amazing. Mostly because of Star Fox Adventures, but hey, there are lots of other good games on there too. Number 1. ReCore. Alright, so those of you who follow me on Twitter already know I love this game. It's not perfect, of course, but it's much better than its pitiful sales of about 240,000 would suggest. ReCore is an Xbox One and PC exclusive. It was developed by Armature Studios, which is made up of the team that created the Metroid Prime trilogy, and Mega Man creator Keiji Inafune. ReCore is the most Nintendo game I have ever played that isn't a Nintendo game. It's full of floating platforms that you have to jump between, which feels amazing by the way, exploration, collecting shiny things to unlock doors, upgrading your weapons and items, and delving into dungeons to find new items. Not to mention tons of collectibles. ReCore feels like Zelda meets Metroid meets Mario 64 meets Mega Man Legends. Upon its release, it struggled with some technical issues, including long loading times, which updates have now resolved. In other words, this is a really fun game that has a huge amount of appeal to Nintendo fans. Unfortunately, it went to Xbox fans instead, who after this and Rare Replay are likely growing confused as to why all of their exclusives are Nintendo games. Unlike Rare Replay, I don't see any real chance of ReCore ever making its way to the Switch, but I think it would do great if it did. ReCore is a prime example of an incredibly fun game that was in the wrong place at the wrong time. To its credit, the developers have continued to support the game with updates and even free DLC. Microsoft is even reprinting the game with the DLC included on the disc, calling it the Definitive Edition, but somehow I don't think that will suddenly make ReCore a success. ReCore on Xbox and PC rather than Nintendo is akin to Gears of War releasing on PlayStation 4 or Kingdom Hearts releasing on Xbox One. Oh, wait, they're actually doing that? For crying out loud. Thank you very much for watching. I'd love to know what misplaced games you've enjoyed over the years and which system you think they should have been released on. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to NWR TV for constant Nintendo coverage, and check out NintendoWorldReport.com for even more. If you enjoy content like this, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/NWR. You can also push the thumbs up button if you like. Not sure that it actually does anything algorithmically, but it's sure fun to push.